Last night I watched a 2013 mockumentary called The Sacrament, which pretended to document the discovery of a cult that, maliciously brought people away from their homes and got them to sell all their worldly possessions and give them over to this cult leader. And they moved and created a community where they all followed this cult and didn't question anything the leader said. And then ultimately they drank the Kool-Aid and all of them died. Clearly there were a lot of parallels to the infamous Jim Jones, who rightly should be rejected by all true Christians. And all true Christians do need to keep out a wary eye for cult leaders. There are a lot of vicious wolves who come in sheep's clothing, who try and ruin the flock, trying to gather followers for themselves rather than to get followers for Christ. I mean, we as Christians need to be diligent never to give over all of our thinking to another person. No matter how intelligent that other person is, we need to make all judgments in light of the biblical revelation. And the followers of this cult in the mockumentary made the mistake of not understanding the Bible for themselves and instead entrusting all of their decisions over to another person. And that's one of the main reasons why we need to understand the Bible for ourselves, so that we can't fall into the trap of following after deceived leaders and deceptive leaders who would rather destroy the flock of Christ rather than build it. The film also clearly presented a very negative outlook of Christianity as a whole. And as much as they could, they tried to make it seem as though the cult leader had some sort of connection to biblical Christianity. But biblical Christianity teaches us that we have one master, we have one Father, and that's Jesus Christ. There's no human alive who has the kind of ultimate authority over us that God has alone. Pastors and teachers in the faith are useful, they're helpful, they guide us on our path of faith, they help us to disciple in our knowledge of the gospel. But we cannot allow any pastor, no matter how right he is on no matter how many topics, to rule us on everything. We need to learn that no matter how good we find a preacher to be, eventually there's going to be some blind spot that the preacher's not aware of. I'm a preacher and I've got blind spots. I don't know where they are. If I knew where they are, I'd change so that I was in conformity with the reality presented by God in the Bible, with the reality that God has revealed in the natural world. I believe I'm consistent, but that's the deception of blind spots, is that we're blind to them. But as far as cults go, Christians should always be diligent, not to surrender too much of their power over to a person, no matter how much they cloak it with biblical imagery. We need to study the Bible for ourselves. We need to be intellectually virtuous for ourselves and think for ourselves based on the revelation that God has given us in the Bible.